Good morning, everyone. How you doing today? Today's Sunday, so you know what that means. I'm in the shop. I'm in the shop every day. But since it's Sunday, I'm working on my own stuff. Saturdays and Sundays, that's usually what I do. I work on my own stuff. I got so many projects, it's not even funny. At some point, I got to get to that Ford truck with the blown out spark plug. I'm going to pull the cab off and replace and do the inserts on every single spark plug hole in there because I don't want it to happen again. And then I'm going to put that truck on the road. What else do I got? I got a Chevy 3500 dump truck. I showed you a video on how I got the odometer to work, which was a surprise that it worked. But I've seen that trick do wonders for certain things. Yes, I got that to fix. I got the F-150 to fix. I have a Chevy 1500 I got to fix. What else? There was another something I got. Well, I'm working on my wife's Caravan today. I got my own truck I got to put a clutch in at some point. That's a Silverado 1500. I have a Sierra 1500 I have to finish. I got to put a transfer case in that. That's mine also. But yeah, I just got a lot of projects. I actually just finished this one. Now this is a 2500 series with an 8.1 and an Allison, and it's a 4-door. It's kind of crowded in here right at the moment, but it's a 4-door crew cab, 6.5 foot bed. It's in pretty good shape. It's got 300,000 miles on it, but the motor was replaced. The transmission I just put in, that was from a 100,000 mile truck. Put some new headlights in it. Really made it look pretty good, but I have this truck actually sold. So hopefully it's going to go later on this week. I got to go send it and get it detailed because as you can see, I had it sitting for a while, so it's pretty dirty. I gave it just a quick bath. Let's see, what else with it? Nothing really spectacular. We put a windshield in it because it was busted. But yeah. So right now, my project is my wife's Caravan. It's got a broken transmission mount. I've been meaning to change it for a while, and just kind of been living with it. It's not going to go anywhere. It's kind of encased, so it like when an old broken motor mount, the whole motor would like lift up. Well, this thing does allow it to shift, but it's encased in like basically like a steel housing, so it can only go so far, and then it stops. But problem with that is it does affect the other motor mounts. I don't want to break the other motor mounts. I have changed them in the past. So anyway, here it is. This is our Caravan. It's a 2008. It's got 225,000 miles on it. I got no complaints at all. I love this vehicle. Let's see now, what do we got here? So here it is, the 3.8. That's the original tranny. This motor was actually replaced 100,000 miles ago with a new Chrysler one. And the reason I had to replace it was I believe I was sabotaged. Somebody had loosened the oil filter on me. And it just so happened it was a day that my daughter needed to use the van. And so she came and picked up at my job. And I believe somebody at my job, and I know who it was, I'm pretty confident I know who it was, had loosened the oil filter. Now, had I been driving it, I would have caught it, and nothing would have happened. But my daughter was driving it, and she was crossing from one town to the other, where you actually have to cross a bridge. And she said, as soon as she got to the bridge, all of a sudden the oil light came on. So what is she going to do? Yeah, continue to the other side of the bridge. I don't want you stopping in the middle of the bridge. I don't want her getting hurt. So she did. She went to the other side of the bridge, pulled over. By that time, the damage was done. It was too late. Luckily, I had a warranty on it still. So I was able to get the engine warranted, so I put a motor in it. I guarantee you it would still be the same original motor had that not happened. But like I said, that was sabotage. Somebody loosened the filter up just enough, and it was peeing out when she picked it up at my job. I saw the spot on the ground where the van was. But anyway, so that's neither here nor there. But anyway, let me just show you real quick the mount. So the mount is down there on top of the tranny. And as you can see, I got to take the battery out because it's got bolts coming up from the bottom. You can see one big headed, I think that's an 18 millimeter, but up on the frame rail, you can, let's see if I can focus in on it. Probably not because I got stuff in the way. Yeah, you can just see the head of one bolt right there. And then there should be bolts going in to the frame rail from the side. But I'm going to take the battery out and go from there. So let's get the battery out and let's start doing this. There you see I got the battery tray out of the way. Really not a big deal. And as you can see, you got bolts up here, and then you have bolts coming in through the side here. See that? There's one there, there's one on that side. So now this thing also has a front and rear mount. There's one all the way back there. You can just see the top of it protruding right there. And then it's got one up here. It's on that cross member. You can just see the edge of it. That one I actually got to change also. I have changed that one in the past. I had done the three. The one in the front here, the one in the back there, and the one on the side. I did those three at the same time. And I never did this one because I was too lazy. And then it finally broke. So, but in the process, it took this one out too. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take those 18s out, and it should be supported well enough. Once I loosen up those 18s, I should see if it drops or not. Oops. I should see if it drops or not just by loosening them. But it should be good enough with all the weight supported on there, because that's attached to basically at the bell housing area. So that should be enough to support everything. If not, then I'll have to put a jack under it, but I think it's going to be okay. So let me start loosening up those 18s, and I actually have my tripod here, so maybe I can show you what I'm doing. All right, so let's get my gun on there, and let's just see. You see it dropped. But yeah, see, that's absolutely enough. Like, I don't have to worry about this thing falling all the way down. Some cars you do. You got to be very careful. Some cars are not supported, so you go to take it out. You start loosening up, that thing will drop. So, okay, so now it's a matter of getting in here and getting these bolts out. Hopefully I have enough room. I may have to take this bracket out. There's a bracket bolted to the side of the transmission. I may have to take it out because I may not have enough room to get these bolts out. So I'm going to find that out right now. I'm going to turn the camera off for that because that's just going to be a little too time consuming for me to show you that. So let me go ahead and do that. So there was just enough room to get the front bolt out. As you can see, they're a short bolt. There's just enough room to get it out. The back one, actually there wasn't. It was just a little bit closer in the back. So what I wound up having to do was stick a pry bar in between the transmission, oops, sorry, like this, and pry it back slightly. It does move because the other motor mounts will flex a little bit. So I just had to do it just a little bit, and I was able to get the back one out. So now, all I got to do, after moving that, is take the top bolts out. Ooh, grabbed the wrong socket. I'm going to go grab the right socket. That's the socket I use to get the 18s off. Now these bolts are actually 16 or 5/8, same size. Deal. So now out comes the mount. As you can see, that mount is toasty. You know? So that's what we call a bad mount. It's been broken for a while. Like I said, I've just been putting it off. But yeah, the only time you really noticed it is if you accelerated hard, you'd feel it vibrate throughout the chassis. So let me go grab the new one, and so we can put that one in. And so here's the new mount. These are made by a company called Anchor, if I'm not mistaken. And I've used cheap ones in the past that were made by some Chinese company. I'm sure these are Chinese as well, but I've used really cheap ones in the past, and they don't last. So Anchor is a pretty good brand. I've used them over the years, and they always have a good fit. They always have a good quality, it seems. But yeah, anyway, it is what it is. So now it's basically, like I always say, reverse procedure to install. So let me get that done. Throw this one out, obviously. This thing's shot. And let me get this in there, and then we're going to go underneath and do the bottom mount. And there we go. That's in place. The tranny cooler lines that sit up top here, there's no nut that goes on there. What happens is the tray sits down above it, the battery tray, and there's a nut that goes through the battery tray that clamps this down in place. So yeah, so that's all done. I had to jack it up slightly. I had to put a floor jack underneath there and jack up on the pan just slightly because the new mount, because it's not broken, the actual mounting point sits up higher, whereas the other one was down lower because it was broken. So I had to pick up on the tranny just about a 3/4 of an inch, just to get it up enough so I could catch the bolts and then tighten those. So yeah, so everything's in there good. So now let's put it up in the air and do the other mount. And then once I'm done with that, then we'll put the battery tray in, and then we're going to be done with this. And here we go underneath. Now with this mount here, you see how far down that is? You can see the bolt, how close it is to the base of this, where this is the new mount. And like I said, that was just me being lazy way back when I changed these mounts. I don't remember how long I did it. Maybe 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 3 years ago. I don't remember. Anyway, now one thing on Dodge Caravans, if you're ever changing the mounts or you're pulling a tranny or whatever, this cross member that has to come out, do not pull it out. Let me explain real quick. Don't pull it out. Take the bolts out from the back. There's 4 bolts in the back. They will usually come out with no issues. Then you got these 2 bolts for this mount. See this bolt? See how bashed up this is? The problem is it goes through this front cross member here, or this front support beam, and it sits down inside that cup. There's a captured nut inside there. And every single time you go to take that thing out, and I've seen it every single time, unless the van's brand new, every single time, that bolt will snap. What you do is take all the other bolts out, leave that one in place. That whole cross member will rotate and swing out of the way on the bushing. And as you can see on mine, see how bashed up that is? That's from those parking abutments and curbs and stuff like that when we were parking this thing. If you recall in a previous video, I changed the front struts. Now years ago, or not years ago, 2 years ago, I had changed the front struts and I was being cheap and I put some cheap aftermarket ones on, complete struts, and the springs pretty much collapsed and got distorted. So the front end of this thing was, nose down. It was basically bottomed out. So, going into parking lots and stuff like that, you would hit those parking abutments and stuff like that every single time. So now, there is no way I'm going to ever try to pull that bolt out. No way. Because it won't come out. It'll snap. Like I said. And when they do, you're not going to be happy. You're really not going to be happy. I saw somebody spend a good 6 hours welding nuts on to the remainder of the bolt that was in there and trying to get heat in there and everything else, and they kept snapping it off, snapping. They eventually got it out, but what a nightmare. What an absolute nightmare. I've seen other people take the radiator and condenser and everything else out, blow the bolt through with either a torch or a drill. This way they could put a nut and a bolt in there. Why go through that? You don't have to. Just take all the other bolts out and then rotate that thing. You can rotate it towards the passenger side. And trust me, you can get the tranny out. You can do whatever else you need to do. Just don't ever bother pulling that cross member out. So there's my quick tip. All right, so let me unbolt everything, because to get that mount out, to get this out, there's not enough clearance in here. I don't feel like taking this whole bracket off the motor. It's a pain. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the bolts out here. I'm going to take the 4 bolts out back there, and I'm going to rotate this thing out of the way so the mount will drop out. I can put the new one up, catch it with the bolt, and then rotate this thing back over. So let's get going with that. So there we go. We got all those bolts out. So now I got my screw jack on there just to keep this thing from popping down. Takes any load off of it. So let me just show you what I'm talking about. Just take the load off of it like that. Move the tranny jack out of the way. And now this, just rotate it off to the side like this. Okay? And now this mount will come out. This mount may actually not be broken, but it was crushed for so darn long, I just decided, you know what, it's better off just to replace it at this point. So let me loosen that up and get that out. There we go, the mount is out, and if you look really close, you can see how the other one is shrunk down, or sunken down. You can see, because I got them lined up. And you can see the bolt hole is down low. That's because it basically sagged. Now if you look close, you can see there's stress on the rubber right there. You can actually see the discoloration, the distortion. So, you know what? I mean, I feel good about my decision to replace this. So now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick the new mount up in there. You got to remember, you got to pay attention, that tab right there, that goes facing forward on this vehicle. So I'm going to put this up in place. Now also, when you're doing stuff like this, the hardware, lube it up, put some WD-40 on it, a drop of engine oil, something. Don't be that person that just throws everything back together. You know, it's got a little bit of rust on its res and you just jam it back in there. Come on, do the right thing. I've said it before. I've heard other technicians in the past, well, what do I care? I'm not going to work on it again. Well, how do you know? How do you know you're not going to work on it again? How do you know at some point in the future you may not wind up buying that vehicle? It's happened to me. I can't tell you how many cars. Most of my cars I buy from my customers. You know, they decide they don't want to fix them anymore, whatever. This Caravan, it was a trade-in. A customer didn't want it anymore, and so that's how I got it. It was a customer of ours at the dealership, and I got a smoking deal on it because they were absolute slobs. The inside was so disgusting, they were actually going to just send it straight to wholesale because it was that disgusting. It had maggots in it when I saw it. It was, you wouldn't believe how disgusting the inside of this car was. And he had kids. Car seats in that in there. Oh, the thing was gross. I think it had a book value of 10 grand and I got it for 2. So, because that's what they paid for it. And that was our deal as technicians at the dealership. You know, we could buy a certain number of vehicles a year that way. And this was one of them. I think it was 1 or 2 that we were allowed to buy a year that way. Otherwise they would have to go to auction or whatever. But yeah, I got it for 2 grand. So who cares? I took the whole interior out, myself and a buddy of mine, Marvin. Hey, Marvin. We took the whole interior out, cleaned everything. It was gross. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Anyway, so like I said, lube up the threads. Would you want to be the next guy that has to deal with it and then you got stuff breaking and whatnot because somebody just decided not to put some lube on there? It's not going to kill you to do it. How long is it going to take you? 0.5 seconds? Come on. So let me do that. Let me lube up these threads. Actually, I'm going to wire wheel a couple of these bolts. They're a little gnarly. See that? So just going to wire wheel a couple of them. And see, some of them are absolutely fine. But the ones that went up through the chassis and the back, those ones in particular are pretty nasty. So I'm just going to do that and put this all back together. There it is all together. I got it up and running again. I don't know if you can hear that exhaust leak. It's got a slight exhaust leak. The front flex pipe is broken right where it meets the manifold. It's been like that for probably 2 years now. Wife is starting to get on my case about fixing it. So now that the motor mount's done, that's going to be the next thing. I'm not going to do that today. But to do that, I got to drop the exhaust down, and I've already replaced the exhaust in the back, and I wound up welding it together. So now I'm going to have to cut the exhaust, drop it down, replace that piece, and then weld everything back together. So not a job for today. And it's not really that loud. You don't really notice it when you're driving it. She says she smells it. I don't smell anything. But then again, I'm used to the smells. So. But anyway, so let's take it for a road test and see what it feels like. Okay, so we're going out on the road here, and I can tell you right off the bat, right in the parking lot, it feels smoother. And now, full throttle acceleration. I mean, yeah, it's not the fastest thing in the world, but before you could actually feel the motor grounding out against the frame or something along those lines, because you would get like a rumbly vibration during the full throttle time. So anyway, I think that's just about it. Let me get through this traffic light. Yeah, what a huge, huge difference. I mean, it's night and day difference to how smooth this thing is now. It's amazing how you don't realize that something is really a problem when it happens over a period of time. I always wonder how people can come in with wheel bearings that are falling out and not realize the wheel bearings are no good. And I guess they just don't pay attention to it over time, and they're not mechanically inclined, so they just don't even think about it. But all right, I'm pulling up to the rest stop now. Alright, so I'm just stopped in the rest stop here. Alright, that ends this video. I got schmutz on my head. Okay, so that ends this video. Hopefully you got something out of that. If you did, hit that like button. If you could, please subscribe. Alright guys, have a great day. Keep wrenching.